As a project manager, schedule planning is a critical exercise. You plan for the ideal situation and you also plan for contingencies. The primary goal is to protect the activities on the critical path. Generally, there is some flexibility in your schedule, and you determine where it is by performing the forward and backward passes through your schedule. The free flow in non-critical path activities is there to lend flexibility in order to meet the critical path deadlines. But sometimes we may encounter conflicts that are not along the critical path, where free float can still come in handy. Although we take a lot of time to carefully plan our schedule, sometimes we make mistakes and we don't realize it until project work has begun. Perhaps we have assigned the same resource to two activities that are supposed to be happening at the same time. These can be human resources, or they can be machines or tools that are limited in availability. Consider activities H and J. Unfortunately, we have accidentally assigned the same individual to both of these activities. We'll call her Louise. Louise has specialized knowledge and experience, and we consider her to be irreplaceable. Leveling our resources by bringing someone in from another activity to replace Louise is not an option. And we don't want to risk burnout or errors by having Louise work overtime. We will have to consider a different resource optimization technique. Can you think of one and how we might apply it? You may pause the video at any time to determine the answer, and then resume the video when you're ready to hear the correct answer. If you said resource smoothing, that is correct. There are two resource optimization techniques, leveling and smoothing. We have already determined that resource leveling is not an option since Louise is not replaceable, so we will use resource smoothing instead. Resource smoothing does not change the number of resources or the duration of an activity. It simply uses float to delay the activity to a start date that resolves a resource issue. Louise is assigned to activities H and J. Activity H has 5 months of float, while activity J has 2 months of float. One of these activities is a better choice than the other when it comes to resource smoothing. Do you know which one? You can pause now and resume when you're ready. If you said that activity H is the better one to use for resource smoothing, that is correct. Using the available float, we can delay activity H by 4 months so that it starts in August rather than April. This resolves the resource conflict with Louise. So why did we choose activity H instead of delaying activity J? Even after delaying activity H by 4 months, there is still 1 month of remaining float on path 1. This is very important for controlling the schedule. If we had decided to delay activity J instead, we would have used all of the available float on path 2, and as a result, we would have made it a critical activity with no more available float. That creates unnecessary risk to our schedule, so we probably wouldn't use resource smoothing with activity J in this situation. Resource smoothing uses the available float to delay an activity to start at a later point in time. The activity doesn't change in duration, and the resource assignments don't change either. The activity still costs the same as well. You may need to consider any impact to your budget since the timing of the activity will be changing, and that will have an effect on when you will have expenditures for this activity. Using resource smoothing helps to resolve any resource conflicts you may encounter. In the example with Louise, we used a human resource conflict. Resource smoothing can also be used to resolve conflicts with other types of resources, such as equipment. Let's say that you need to do 2 types of tests on your network. One is volume testing to make sure customers can access your website even during high traffic times. The other is data security testing to make sure your website is safe from hackers. In order for these 2 tests to be performed independently, you will need to schedule these activities at different times. If you miss this during your schedule planning, you may need to rely on resource smoothing to correct any resource conflicts before these tests can be conducted. You may consider using project management software to assist with resource smoothing. However, it can't replace the intricate knowledge of the project team. As a project manager, you may know these unique properties of your project activities that your software can't possibly know. Using expert judgment will help with the continued success of your project.